Thanks for stopping by the art studio today. I was just practicing my ukulele. Now is a great time to become a master of an instrument. I have been practicing this ukulele for about 4 years now. And I have a little songbook here of songs that I've been working on for many years. That last tune that I just played is called Folsom Prison Blues. It is an old famous country western singer named Mr. Johnny Cash, otherwise known as the Man in Black because he always wore black. And he used to travel around the country making concerts and performing inside of state prisons. So I thought it'd be appropriate today to play one of his classic tunes, Folsom Prison Blues. The prisoners all around the country loved his performances, and it reminds us how music and art can really save you when you're in captivity, like we are right now. I am ready to start off this session not only with song, but by introducing you to our new puppy. I've had lots of requests. When are we going to get to meet her and see her? Stick with us and you will get to meet the dog without a name. Hi, welcome. Thanks for coming back. As promised, I introduce to you human's best friend, certainly one of mine, our new puppy. She's a girl. She has a little bare tummy right there. Otherwise, she's got curly hair. She's got a little bit of gray around her mouth and very, very sharp teeth. I know I've told you this before, but you wouldn't believe how vicious this little ball of fur can be. She also has a little stubby tail. That's a little different than our other dog. Really cute, no name. If you have a name idea, send it here to me and I'll run it past my family. Everybody has to agree, which is hard. BB is going to join us today, because it's her nap time, for a story. It's one of my favorites. It's called The Garden of Abdul Gassazi, and it's by writer and illustrator Chris Van Allsburg. He has done some incredible stories. You might know him as the artist-writer from Jumanji. And this is a really neat story about a magical garden, and it kind of has a little twist at the end. So I want you to be listening for that. Chris uses, I believe, charcoal and pencil for his artwork, so he gets some really great detail. Listen to this story and be thinking about your own magical space. It might be a garden, it might be somewhere indoors, it might just be in your imagination, it might be real. We're going to listen to this story and be using it as a drawing prompt. Here's the first picture. 6 times Miss Hester's dog Fritz had bitten her dear cousin Eunice. So when Miss Hester received an invitation to visit Eunice, she was not surprised to read, P.S. Please leave your dog home. On the day of her visit, Miss Hester asked young Alan Mitz to stay with Fritz and give him his afternoon walk. There's Fritz down there in the corner. As soon as Miss Hester left, Fritz ran into the parlor. He loved to chew on the chairs and shake the stuffing out of the pillows, but Alan was ready. All morning long, he kept Fritz from sinking his sharp little teeth into the furniture. Ooh, that sounds familiar. Finally, the dog gave up and fell asleep, exhausted. Alan took a nap too, but first he hid his hat under his shirt, hats being one of Fritz's favorite things to chew. An hour later, Alan quickly awoke when Fritz gave him a bite on the nose. The bad-mannered dog was ready for his afternoon walk. Alan fastened Fritz's leash, and the dog dragged him out of the house. Walking along, they discovered a small white bridge at the side of the road. Alan decided to let Fritz lead the way across. Some distance beyond the bridge, Alan stopped to read a sign. It said absolutely, positively, no dogs allowed in this garden. At the bottom was signed Abdul Ghazazi, retired magician. Behind the sign stood a vine-covered wall with an open doorway. Alan took the warning quite seriously. He turned to leave, but as he did, Fritz gave a tremendous tug and snapped right out of his collar. He bolted straight ahead through the open door with Alan running right behind. "Fritz, stop, you bad dog," cried Alan, but the dog simply ignored him. Down shadowed paths and across sunlit lawns they raced deeper and deeper into the garden. Finally, Alan drew close enough to grab hold of Fritz, but as he reached out, he slipped and fell. Fritz barked with laughter as he galloped out of sight. Alan slowly picked himself up. He knew he had to find Fritz before Mr. Ghazazi discovered him. Bruised and tired, he hurried off in the dog's direction. Some really beautiful illustrations. After a long search, Alan was ready to give up. He was afraid he might never find Fritz, but then he came upon fresh dog prints. Slowly, he followed Fritz's tracks along a path that led him into a forest. The dirt path ended and a brick walk began. There were no more tracks to follow, but Alan was certain that Fritz must be just ahead. Alan started running. In front of him, he could see a clearing in the forest. As he came dashing out of the woods, he stopped as quickly as if he had run up against a wall, for there in front of him stood a truly awesome sight. It was the house of Ghazazi. Alan nervously climbed the great stairs, convinced Fritz had come this way and been captured. The boy's heart was pounding when he arrived at the huge door. He took a deep breath and reached for the bell, but before he touched it, the door swung open. There, in the shadow of the hallway, stood Ghazazi the Great. "Greetings, do come in," was all that he said. Alan followed Ghazazi into a large room. When the magician turned around, Alan quickly apologized for letting Fritz into the garden. He politely asked that, if Mr. Ghazazi had Fritz, would he please give him back? The magician listened carefully and then, smiling, said, "Certainly you may have your little Fritzy. Follow me." With those words, he went to the door and led Alan back outside. Oh no, my dog's using my necklace as a head holder. They were walking across the lawn when suddenly Ghazazi stopped by a gathering of ducks. He began to speak in a voice that was more like a growl. "I detest dogs. They dig up my flowers. They chew on my trees. Do you know what I do to dogs I find in my garden?" "What?" whispered Alan, almost afraid to hear the answer. "I turn them into ducks," bellowed Ghazazi. In horror, Alan looked at the birds in front of him. When one duck came forward, Ghazazi said, "There's your Fritz." "Impossible," he answered. "Only time can do that. This spell may last years or perhaps just a day. Now take your dear bird and please don't come again." When Alan took the bird in his arms, he tried to give him a bite. "Good old boy," Alan said sadly as he patted the bird's head. "You really haven't changed so much." With tears in his eyes, he started for home. Behind him, Alan could hear Ghazazi laughing. As he approached the stairway, a gust of wind took Alan's hat sailing right off his head. Running along with one arm reaching for the hat, Alan lost his hold on Fritz. The duck flew out ahead and grabbed the hat in midair. But instead of landing, he just kept on flying higher and higher until he disappeared in the afternoon clouds. Oh boy, Alan is going to have some explaining to do. Alan just stood and stared at the empty sky. "Goodbye, old fellow," he called out sadly, sure that Fritz was gone forever. At least he had something to chew on. Slowly, one step after another, Alan found his way back to the garden gate and over the bridge. It was sunset by the time he reached Miss Hester's. Lights were on, and he knew she must be home. With a heavy heart, he approached the door, wondering how Miss Hester would take the news. When Miss Hester came to the door, Alan blurted out his incredible story. He could barely hold back the tears. Then racing out of the kitchen, dog food on his nose, came Fritz. Alan couldn't believe his eyes. "I'm afraid Mr. Gasazi played a trick on you," said Miss Hester, trying to hide a smile. "Fritz was in the front yard when I returned. He must have found his own way home while you were with Mr. Gasazi. You see, Alan, no one can really turn dogs into ducks. That old magician just made you think that duck was Fritz." Alan felt very silly. He promised himself he'd never be fooled like that again. He was too old to believe in magic. Miss Hester watched from the porch as Alan waved goodbye and hurried down the road to go home. Then she called out to Fritz, who was playfully running around the front yard. He came trotting up the front steps with something in his mouth and dropped it at Miss Hester's feet. "Why, you bad dog," she said. "What are you doing with Alan's hat?" Get it? That's the end. If you recall, midway through the story, whoop! Oh! The puppy just was asleep and rolled right off my knee. If you recall, in the middle of the story, when Mr. Gasazi said that he turned Fritz into a duck, the duck flew off with Alan's hat. So if this dog really wasn't turned into a duck, then how did he bring a hat home with him? Chris Van Allsburg always has a great twist at the end of his stories, kind of like Jumanji. He also did Polar Express, if you remember about the kids with the bell. I encourage you to check out some more of his stories. When we get back to school, you can go in and ask Miss Ruith to set you up with some, I think he's got like 5 or 10 books, who knows how many. Today, I would like you to draw your own magical place. It might be a garden, it might be a fort, it might be a spot in your closet. We used to have a little wine cellar room in our basement growing up that was kind of a secret little place where presents were hidden, and my parents always knew we were too scared to go in there alone, so they would always hide birthday presents and Christmas presents. I want you to be thinking about somewhere magical or secret, or just a cool space or a spot somewhere that you live. Could be anything. And I want you to draw it and send it to me. I am going to do the same, and I think I either might do that wine cellar, or we also had a very big special tree in our front yard called the Secret Tree. And it was enormous. It was like one of the trees up at Volunteer Park with the big redwood cedar branches that you could climb on the inside. So on the outside it looked like a solid tree, but on the inside there were all these great branches, and we'd play all kinds of imaginary games on there. We'd pretend it was a spaceship or a tree house. We did all kinds of things. And I imagine you found some of those kind of spots around your house. I want you to visualize that, get some ideas from here. I encourage you to add one of your own special animals, make-believe or real, and do a great drawing. I'm going to get started right over here on my dining room table. Let's meet back. Welcome back. I am pretty much finished with my drawing. I tried to use a different material, medium, as we say in the art world. I found these old color pencils. Again, not my most favorite thing to work with, but I thought I'd switch it up a little bit. Found a little piece of scratch paper and just let it rip. Like I said, I had a place called the Secret Tree. It was in our front yard of our house growing up, and it was this enormous tree like you might see in the Arboretum, and the inside of it was hollow. So my brothers and I, which I didn't add in this picture because I kind of ran out of room, but we would play inside of the magic special tree, secret tree, and we imagined all kinds of different adventures, and we hung out. It was like our clubhouse. So I took a color pencil, just kind of played around. I wrote The Secret Tree on here by JLL. I put the date at the bottom. This tree has tons of great special memories, and it's nice to think about that right now. The Secret Tree, everyone. I also put myself in my favorite old pair of striped overalls. That's all for today. Thanks for joining me. And I look forward to seeing you again later this week. Thanks, everybody.